so I just recorded a video before, and now, finally, I feel like it's appropriate to explain one of the ceremonies. And I wrote two of my ceremonies in my journal, but I don't have it with me, and I'm not sure if you guys prefer to just have me speak it from my memory or read it, but I think I'll read the other ceremony. But for my first ceremony, it's going to be a long video. It was very intense, very hectic, and I'm just going to jump right in because it's going to take some time, and I might forget a huge part because it's been like 2 weeks. So anyways, I don't know what to call him, my teacher, I guess, brought us to his teacher's retreat center, he's like very well known in Iquitos. But anyway, so we go to this, like the day after I land, we pick up another girl, and then we go to his teacher's retreat center, and there are all these people that we don't know, and that night we're supposed to have our first ceremony, which is kind of scary because I didn't prepare for it. But everyone kept telling me that, oh, your first ceremony, it's going to be fine, it'll be peaceful, it's like introduction, saying hello to Mother Aya, and it was not like that for me. Maybe I'm a rare case, but it was the most intense, traumatic experience I've ever had in my life. More than the trauma itself. So the night began, so you do ceremonies at 8 p.m., so when the sun goes down, and I was feeling a little bit, there was waves of calmness, of okay, it's gonna be fine, and then anxiety, and that's kind of how every ceremony goes for me. And I have a ceremony tonight, and so I'm just like trying to really center myself. But anyway, so I was going through waves of calmness and anxiety, and then when it was time, like 30 minutes before, everyone goes into the maloka, and they all sit on their mat and prepare and meditate and everything, and then I was in my head thinking, oh, this shit is real, like this is about to happen. But so we're sitting there, and I remember they called the first person for their drink, and I ended up being the last person, number 9. Of course, I was number 9. And when I go up, I set my intention. I pray quickly and take a drink. And the taste wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it wasn't pleasant. And so they give you lime, and you can suck on the lime. But anyways, so then I go to my mat, and within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. And it takes quite a while for it to kick in, but everyone began singing the Icaros, the songs, and they blow out the lights. And so you're sitting there with your thoughts going, okay, what's gonna happen? And like trying your best to just remain calm and to remind yourself of your own truth. And everything was good for a while, and like I said, it took maybe an hour for me to really start feeling something. But I began seeing a few visuals, and I remember this thought. Kali was with me through the whole ceremony. Like, I just kept seeing like images of Kali and saying her name, and that tied in with me later on in the trip, and like it's weird, but I was seeing visuals, and in my head I was saying everything is painted black, like Kali, like her skin, the whole room was Kali. And there was a moment where, oh sorry, I have to go to the bathroom, sorry. There was a moment where I was looking at everybody, and something inside of me like looked at them and said they have no idea what they're about to experience. And I was referring to me in a way. But anyways, it's really hard to explain the fractals and like the images, because it's like something you learn is that's the least important thing. The most important thing are the lessons and the feelings you get. The images it's the light show. It's important, but it's kind of distracting. So I won't try to explain that. But anyways, there was a period where I began to feel it, and I would like constantly touch my bucket and like move it closer. I'm like, okay, it's probably gonna come soon. And then there was a point where I just like was holding my bucket and kind of like trying my best to release and to purge, because I just could feel it coming up, and like it was taking so long. And then my friend next to me, I remember she grabbed my hand and she was just like, we're one, and then saying like, we're sisters. And then we would start laughing uncontrollably, and we were like, it's so funny, it's so funny. But then I would do this thing where I realized when she said we're one, it freaked me out, because then I realized none of this existed. And it reminded me of an experience I had with my dear sister before. And so we were holding hands, and then I forgot, like, her body felt like it was my body, and then I was like, that's when it clicked, and I just started to lose it. And so I turned my back on her, and I was just like, I can't talk to her anymore, because that's going to send me on a mind trip. So I was like, just with my bucket for a long time. And I'm sorry, my stomach really, really hurts, so I'm like trying to have it pass so that I can keep explaining. Forgive me. So time goes on, and then I start to notice that I'm in and out of consciousness. It's very potent and strong, and I feel completely out of control. And I keep trying to remind myself like who I am. It was like my ego was being stripped, everything was being ripped from my very core. And so I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember my name. It was gone. And there was a point where the whole trip was very physical. Like, I was moving so much, and I caused quite a ruckus that whole night. For anyone who was there during the night seeing this video, which I don't think they will, but they would laugh, because yeah, that was the most like insane thing they've probably seen. But anyways, there was a point where I started to crawl, and I was like visually seeing me like crawling through these concrete walls, breaking down these walls to try to escape, because I just couldn't handle it. My thoughts, like, I kept saying out loud, I can't handle this anymore, I can't handle this, and I just wanted to die. And so I actually pushed my way, I crawled out of the maloka and like broke the insect mesh wall. I broke it, and I was like laying in the dirt, and at this point I honestly don't remember a lot of what happened. And I guess I was there for a while. Someone saw me, and then the shaman and the students tried to help me up, and that's when the night just got crazier. And if I could explain it, I felt like my consciousness would come in, but then I would be ripped, and something was inside of me, living through me. And it was just really frightening for me. And the next scene, I was very physically abusive to myself. I was smashing my head on a wooden pillar because I just wanted it to end. It was really traumatic, the visions that I was seeing. It was, the whole basis of it was sex, rape. I just continually saw vomit, rape for hours. And everything, when someone would touch me, talk to me, it all felt like rape. And so I was like slamming my head against a pillar, and then I started hitting my head really hard against the wooden floor, and then I was like crying, saying, I think it's bleeding. So they were like trying to stop me from doing that. And I was like, I don't even know if you've ever seen a horror movie. It's just like possessed. It was kind of insane. So after I was slamming my head, everyone was trying to calm me down and to remind me of like what I was, who I was, and what I was going through. And there was a point where they just like stopped trying, because they knew that I just had to go through this traumatic experience. And sometimes they would pour water on me, and I, during ceremony, kept just putting water all over me to cleanse me and to like push off this just yuck. And at one point, I started putting my fingers on my throat because I was like, this thing needs to come out. So I was like, I had my bucket and I was like sticking my fingers down my throat, and then that's when I couldn't stop throwing up. And I was no longer using the bucket, and I was just sitting there, like, and my shirt, like, came off because I had a tube top because I didn't have my clothes, but I was sitting there without my shirt, literally just throwing up. And, like, in my head, I was stuck in this thought loop of I'd open my eyes and I'd see my family and every single person that I knew in the room. Like, I was hallucinating. And I would see them, and everyone kept saying, you've made it, and it was like the whole thing was like time no longer existed, and Kali, her essence was the whole trip at this point, and it was just so destructive, and like and I kept saying out loud, who am I? And then I'd say, I'm Kali, because like when I was little, my middle name is Mick Kali, but it's spelled Kali, so now I call it Mick Kali. And so during the trip, I just remembered, like, childhood Silken was Kali, and I would see images of this huge dance floor, and I was a dancer, and my dad and mom were there, and they wanted me to dance, and I just kept saying, I can't do it anymore. I can't keep acting, I don't want to dance. And like, it felt like I was this child on the stage and there was this audience, but I was so alone. And it's raining with the sun out. But I felt so alone, and I was stuck in the thought loop, like the worst I've ever been, where I was like, I have taken a substance and I have fallen into a void, a black hole in time. I would never get out of this ayahuasca trip. And I just kept realizing nothing was real. It was all an illusion, and I kept saying, it's all a lie. And just constant, like, opening my eyes, seeing my family and everyone going, it's okay, you've made it. You've made it to the space of non-linear time. And, like, then I would just throw up because it was so traumatic. And I remember seeing the shaman and everybody, and I would, like, reach out for them and say, Mommy, Daddy. And then all of a sudden I'd push them away. Like, I would want their love, but I couldn't trust them. And they kept just putting water on me and kind of holding me down. And I'm just trying to think of other things that happened. It was so much. And then there was a sober sitter, my friend. And apparently, I don't recall this, but apparently at one point she was trying to help me and I strangled her. I don't remember this, and I grabbed her arm and bruised her, and the next day I didn't know I did that, but the worst bruise I've ever seen in my life, like every single color, it was huge. I did that to her, and I ripped down one of the tablecloth thingies, and the candle fell, and I almost like burnt down the maloca. And I remember the girl that was trying to help me holding a candle, and I asked her to burn me. And I remember that for some odd reason. It felt really dark. But I was just falling into this pit of absolute darkness, and everything felt, like I said, like I was just being raped by life. And I no longer knew who I was. And the presence of Kali didn't feel beautiful to me. It felt really destructive and dark because my ego was so present. But I felt helpless, and what else? I just feel like I experienced so much and I can't remember. This is why I want to read it from my journal for the next ceremony, but oh my gosh. Oh yeah, another really important part was my hair. And also, I literally have all my bracelets and necklaces I ripped off during ceremony. Everything. I was throwing it, saying, this is not me. Like, I ripped a few of my dreads out, like literally ripped them out. And I don't know which ones they were, but I was trying so hard to run from my ego, saying this is no longer me, I don't know who this is, and I just wanted to shave my hair, my head. But then later in the ceremony I realized how much it helped me. I kept grabbing and like eating my hair, saying, it's my roots, because that was the only thing that helped me remember my family, was my dreadlocks. In every ceremony, I grabbed my hair and the roots, they help me stay really grounded. So that's been such a blessing, actually, even though I lost a few dreads and lost all my bracelets and my mind and my dignity. But during ceremony there was a lot of guilt because I knew I was causing such a scene, but I couldn't control it. Like, I was just reckless. The other ceremonies have been a lot better now. I'm not that crazy anymore, but the first ceremony was by far the most traumatic thing I've experienced in my whole life. The visions I wish to no longer see, but I see over and over in my other ceremonies. And so afterwards, the night was ending and everyone was kind of coming off their trip, and I remember like looking around and people were like circled around me trying to help, and I was just so ashamed and embarrassed when I started to come back to consciousness. And yeah, it was just it was an ego trip, to say the least. And it taught me a lot of humility. It taught me afterwards so many things. I personally went up to people and I apologized, but also thanked them for holding space, for being respectful, and letting me go through what I needed to go through. I was gonna say something else before I talked about my dreads and my bracelet. I'm not sure, but like I said, most traumatic thing I've ever experienced, but it helped me release so much that I didn't even know existed within me, and it all happened so fast. Oh yeah, so what I was gonna say is, what was really strange for me was that I actually hallucinated, and I do this every time I do ayahuasca. I hallucinate and see things and experience things that don't actually happen. Every time I opened my eyes, I literally would see my family. I would see people that I knew, and it wasn't, I don't know how to describe it. It was just so real, and things that I did, I had to ask people if that actually happened or if it was in my mind, because I wasn't sure, and a lot of people said most of the things I did, and that had to do with speech too. I couldn't tell the difference between my mind and the real world and that realm, so I would constantly, I was speaking out loud, but I thought it was all happening in my head, and I discussed and said some very embarrassing things out loud. But everyone's here for healing, and so, you have to remember that we're here to let go of these things. And so no matter how much your ego comes up and no matter how destructive and embarrassing your trip may be, it's totally necessary. And for those who judge you and for those who hold resentment towards what you experience, that's a part of their lesson too. My experience, it seems insane, but everyone in that maloka, everyone in ceremony was supposed to also experience that with me at some level. And then, so everybody left, and I seriously thought the sun would rise, was rising, and I kept saying, everyone was like, what do you need? And I was like, I just need the sun. And for some odd reason, I thought the sun came up. It didn't. But I was laying there, soaking wet, and then I went to my bed, eventually, when everyone was talking in the kitchen. Went to my bed, and I was so depressed, so embarrassed, and completely, sounded like somebody, completely fatigued. And I lay there, and then a few of my friends came in and asked me how I was doing, and I told them everything, how I felt. And the people here have so much compassion, so much understanding. I've never felt so loved and so cared for. It's really quite beautiful. But now that I've explained my very first ceremony, I, in the future, hopefully will explain the second ones, because they all go hand in hand. They're all interlinked. And especially my third ceremony that I did a few days ago was very similar to the first one with the visions, but I'm starting to notice a change. I sat on my mat. I didn't speak out loud. I was more controlled, but it was still traumatic. But anyways, everything you experience on ayahuasca is a process. So be patient, forgive, and love yourself. Love and forgive. That's vital. That is just, yeah, for you to forgive and love others, you must do that for yourself. Somebody's here, I think. Anyways, that's my first ayahuasca ceremony, and I know I missed a lot, and I might add like another clip to explain other things that are important, but if not, that was the basis of my trip, and I know it sounds traumatic and crazy, but that's just the way it was, and I look forward to telling you guys about my other ceremonies. Thank you for watching.